patch 0.6 has been released, and this is one that's taken a while to come. It's been a couple of weeks since the last one, and I think a lot of people were hoping for a significant number of gameplay changes or siege to be implemented, which people have been waiting for a long time. But the most important thing for me is the gameplay changes and getting the combat right. So that's where I'm going to start going through these, and then I'll go through the rest of everything else. So the first one to do with the rotation speed, and this is something that people have been complaining about quite a lot, at least in the past week, to do with spears and stabs with swords. And when you do these, you can't rotate properly. Your character gets stuck, and this change is definitely a good one. I've tried it out. You can't rotate as much as in Warband, which I actually think is a good thing because people would spin around a lot with their stabs in Warband, and that caused a lot of confusion in fighting and looked pretty unrealistic. But this change increases it from what it was, but not to the same extent as it was in Warband. I think it fits a nice middle ground with the rotations. I don't know if it's perfect. I've not played it enough, but it's good. It's in a much better place. You can actually use it properly to stab and rotate, and you're not stuck basically to a single angle with your spear. You can actually rotate with it. But one problem that this has caused is that spears are now very strong because all their other weaknesses that they had, all the other strengths that they had are still there. Plus now they can rotate properly. Having them rotate properly was necessary, but at the same time there need to be some other drawbacks. Because right now you can rotate and deal lots of damage. I mean, with the overhead stab especially, because it goes straight into the head, it's easy to aim into the head. You know, people are doing like 50, 60 pierce damage on heavy armor targets in their head with one stab, and just from what I've seen with people trying this out, it's caused quite a few problems. A few problems as in people aren't using swords much anymore. Everyone's using their spears and their shields, and for some people that's a good thing, but frankly I think everyone just keeping their distances and stabbing with spears is less intuitive and less fun gameplay, and also very different to what we had before. So I think there need to be some nerfs to spears. Obviously I've got a whole video on that, and any or all of those nerfs and changes would help. There's nothing wrong with spears being powerful. They're good weapons in group fights, and they stop cav, and they're good for support and things like this. But having them be having all of those benefits and making them really powerful one-on-one just makes them too strong. And I think they need some drawbacks one-on-one, like a stun if they hit shields, or reducing their speed, getting rid of the pullback when they draw it back, reducing the instant damage effect that happens at the moment, making them bounce more when you're close to enemy targets, things like that, that would help. The next one is the shield and weapon weights affecting movement speed, and this is a good thing in my opinion, but the way it's been implemented is bad, and the reason for that is because archers are already kiting ground troops very easily. And a lot of people are complaining about archers being OP essentially because it's so easy for them to evade melee combat, and it means that ground troops can't do anything about it. This has made the problem even worse because now ground troops, the legionary for instance, when he's in his heavy armor with his shield out and his sword out, goes so slowly, any archer unit can evade him essentially forever. They can just turn and run, and he can do nothing. Turn and run and shoot, and then turn and run away again, and just forever, literally. And that's, I mean, it's realistic in the sense that yes, a lighter armored archer would be able to avoid a heavily armored infantry for a long time, but it's terrible for gameplay. It's absolutely terrible for gameplay because it means that nobody wants to play those infantry units, which should be the core. Nobody wants to play them because if you play them, you can't catch up, and the ranged units literally just run away. And because there's no force field effect on the shields, or well, there is, but it's not as significant as it was in Warband. It's really easy for archers to shoot people in their toes or in their hands or in their head and things like that. So not only can they run away forever, but they can turn, shoot them in the toes, turn, run away again, rotate, shoot them in the toes, run away again, rotate, shoot them in the toes, and they can just keep going forever. And that's not good. It's really not good, and it's not helped because people say that cavalry are meant to shut down the archers and things, and that's true. But right now, if a horse is going full speed and an archer shoots it in the head, it's down in 3 shots, and that's not very difficult for a skilled archer to shoot a horse 3 times while it's coming towards them. So, I mean, yeah, not even in the head, honestly. I think you could probably kill it in 2 shots if you had a good bow and you target it in the head, but that's not in a good place. And I think that the way to do this properly is to have shields and weapons affect the weights to some extent, but to less of an extent than they do now. But then also have bows and crossbows affect movement speed to an even larger extent. And again, that's not realistic, but it means that if an archer has their bow out, they'll be a lot slower. Whereas if they were to drop their bow and just use their melee weapon, they would be a lot faster. And I think that works well because it just means that they can't run away forever with their bow out. And honestly, that would fix a lot of the kiting problems if it made them a little bit slower when they've got their bow. This has, I assume it's done that to some extent. I assume, I don't know, but I think that should be ramped up to be more than the effect of shields. I do know that this has affected throwing weapons, because a lot of people are complaining that if you play Rabble now, which is a light Kuzeyat unit, the cheap one, that's meant to be quite quick, if you play Rabble and take the stones, you're one of the slowest units in the game if you play Rabble with stones, which makes no sense. You've got a few pebbles in your pocket and you're wearing no armor, and yet you're one of the slowest. So I don't think the implementation has been done perfectly. Having throwing weapons make people slower is good, but I think it should be based on how good the throwing weapon is. So something like stones shouldn't affect throwing weight that much. But if you've got a Jereed or one of the Highland javelins or something, that should affect your movement speed more. And I think that will help with hybrid infantry units being able to kite with javelins if they're being made a lot slower by having them out. And I think that would make a good difference to that and help with the kiting problem, which is a big problem at the moment because not only, like I said before, not only do the shields not cover the entire body anymore because they don't have that extra force field defense, not only do they not cover the whole body, so it's really easy for archers to shoot around them, but then archers can just keep running and then turn and then shoot the exposed parts and then run and turn, and it makes infantry essentially non-viable. I mean, unless you do a massive group of them all together, one infantry going after an archer can do nothing. He can't catch him. So yeah, that needs to be changed. And as far as the attacker's stun goes, it's hard to see exactly what this has done in games so far. My playing, I've not really noticed much of a difference. I was hoping it would be something like, like I said before about the spears. If they stab a shield whilst they've got the spear and a shield out, then they get a small stun. The guy with the spear gets a small stun, like there is in Warband, but that doesn't seem to be the case. I was thinking that it could be something to do with initiative as well, like you had in Warband. Essentially, if you landed a hit on someone, so not just on their shield, or on their block, but if you actually hit them, the person who had landed that hit would have initiative for their next attack. It means that if you hit someone, you would then by default have the initiative to swing again, and the other person would have to block or try some risky attack. But that's a way that's intuitive because you've landed a hit, and your reward for landing a hit is that you get to swing again. And that's how it works in something like Mordhau as well. If you land a hit, you have the initiative, and then you can swing again. Whereas in Bannerlord, it's a bit different because sometimes you hit someone, and it feels like you should have the initiative. It feels like they should be stunned from slightly from having been hit, but then suddenly they just come out with a lightning overhead or something, and you have to suddenly try and block it when you feel like you should have had the initiative, because that's what feels natural in the game. But it doesn't seem to be anything to do with that. I'm really not sure exactly what this is because it just says rearranged. It doesn't say specifically. So ultimately, I think this first change is very good. I really like it. The second change is a good idea, but I think this version of its implementation has been done poorly. So I think there need to be some edits to that to make it really good. And this one, it's hard to tell, honestly, at this point. It's kind of disappointing that these are the only changes because right now, shields being insanely strong is one of the biggest problems. It's making combat last. I mean, I'm when I play skirmish, in the average skirmish round, my shield doesn't break. Even if I'm fighting factions that are using axes and things, in the average skirmish round, my shield doesn't break, and I mean, it just makes the skill of blocking essentially a pretty useless skill because you always have a shield. Um, and I don't think that's a good thing. I think the shields can be stronger they can be stronger than they are in Warband. I don't see the problem with that. But as I did a video demonstration of that, and when the shield is taking like 40 sword hits to break, that's never going to break in a round of skirmish or something. That's absolutely insane, and it doesn't make sense either. Um, so I think that needs to come down significantly. Anything over like 25 hits. I mean, 25 is already a massive number, but anything over 25 hits is pretty insane, and I don't think any shield should be lasting more than that. Even if they are doing the correct stance block, which is obviously something that exists now with shields, even if they are doing the correct stance block, it shouldn't be lasting more than that. So that's something I was hoping to see a change to. I was hoping to see maybe something to do with shield bashes too, because at the moment people are spamming those out really quickly. There's a lot of suggestions on how to change those. So adding a longer cooldown between each shield bash, making it so you have to hold your block for a larger number of seconds before you actually can shield bash. Some suggestions about reducing how long it stuns, reducing its knockback, things like that, but none of that. None of that here, which is a shame because when I go on like a TDM or even in skirmish, like there are large numbers of players that literally they play with this essentially unbreakable shield and they just right click and they right click for ages and you can't break their shield. You can't do anything if you're playing infantry against them. But they'll occasionally just throw out a shield bash. And it's just, I mean, it's annoying to me, but I've seen lots of complaints on the forums too from new people that have gotten access and they're complaining that when they're playing the game, they're playing against people that are literally just blocking and shield bashing and it's not fun for anyone. It's not fun, it's not intuitive, it's not realistic either. Not that that matters too much, but it's just not good for gameplay. So those were the two things that I was most hoping that we might see something in. Obviously there's other complaints. I might put a few of those on the screen if I can be bothered to type them all out. But I'm gonna make some more videos on that sort of stuff anyway. But yeah, not enough in my opinion for how long it's taken for this patch, and not enough changes. Um, but what I do really like is the badges because everybody loves a good in-game flex, and this basically means on the scoreboard now in-game it will display your badge next to your name, and these are unlockable. Or so there's a badge for having tested the alpha, a badge for having tested the beta, a badge for 100 wins in the beta. There's a VIP badge. Those are the only ones that there are at the moment, but this can be a really cool thing if they add more. It's basically something you can grind for in game. Do this, get this badge, and then you can flex with it on other people. I really like that as a thing. The death card is not great how it's done at the moment. It doesn't really show very much except for how many times you've killed the other player and how many times they've killed you. And as someone pointed out, the screen's a bit cluttered now because you've got all the damage going on the bottom left, you've got the kill feed in the top right, and now in the top left you've got the death card, and then you've got the icons at the top, and then you've got your health in the bottom right. There's stuff in every corner of the screen now, and as some people pointed out, it might be a good idea to take some of that out. So there's a bit less clutter, but I think it's okay. The party features are nice. That's just quality of life stuff, really, so that you can actually more easily play with your friends, which is a good idea. The map changes, I've not noticed all of these. Bug fixes were definitely needed though. But yeah, no, the maps all look great so far. I was just wishing there would be more of them because there's more in the game files that just aren't active at the moment. But this is all good stuff. And the dead chat, people have been asking for that. People have been asking for auto run as well. Like in Warband, if you're running and you open the chat, you keep going forwards. People have been asking for that, but they've not done that. I don't know about moving the gold. To me, it looks a bit worse where it is now, but essentially just small interface changes, and this change doesn't really do anything to do with how the game actually works. As he says, it's just a visual correction. But the thing is, This is all that there really is in terms of new stuff or changes for a patch that's taken 2.5 weeks. This is what you'd expect from a weekly patch, an amount like this, but it's been 2.5 weeks. Now, I do know that they're working on things like Siege, which they're trying to get out desperately because everyone's asking for it. So it makes sense that there's not too much here because they're probably putting a lot of effort into trying to get Siege and things to work. And people have been asking for private servers for ages and things. So I can imagine they're putting effort into that, and that's why there's not too much here. But it's still kind of disappointing when 2.5 weeks passes and there's only a few gameplay changes, only a few new features, and only a few map changes and things. It's just not that much. And then in terms of bug fixes, this kind of stuff. I mean, I'm not going to go through this because these are just problems that people have been having, but you can read them here. Some people I know were having problems with shaders and things. Some people are still having problems with that, but it's better now at least. And they've done a quick patch today. Well, yesterday probably when I upload this, but a quick hotfix essentially just to fix some problems. Some people were having problems loading the game, and the blue desert shader that was quite funny. On the desert map, there'd be like blue ink everywhere. But no, things are getting fixed. But ultimately, kind of an underwhelming patch. I would have hoped for more. But hopefully, if this patch is a bit smaller, it means the one after this is going to be a big patch. That's what we can hope for. If the next patch brings like Siege, private servers, and some more gameplay changes, that'll be great. But I think that is what they need to focus on at the moment.